AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
So good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Alldus podcast. I'm your host, Ben Sparks, and today we are continuing with our ServiceNow series, interviewing some of the best and brightest leaders and technical talent from across the ecosystem. Today we are very excited to be hosting not one but two guests from a company called Clear Skye. Clear Skye are a very exciting, innovative organization focused on identity access management software built exclusively on the ServiceNow platform. They focus on making complex problems easier to manage. Our guests, Jarod and TJ, hold the positions of founder and VP of engineering at Clear Skye, and are both names that I'm sure you will probably know from across the ecosystem. Jarod, who is a ServiceNow MVP developer for 2020 and 2021, and TJ is a winner of the Innovation of the Year Award 2012 and winner of the CareerCon Challenge. In this conversation, we are aiming to give our listeners an overview of their career journeys, some of the lessons they've learned on the way, the importance of the ecosystem, Clear Skye products, and so how they're adding value to customers, and what they feel is exciting about the ServiceNow platform currently and in the future. So Jarod and TJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, Ben.
Hey, thank you.
So let's give our listeners a quick overview of who they're listening to. As I mentioned before, Clear Skye are a very exciting, innovative company. Would you mind giving our listeners a quick overview, just headlines of what the company does and how you're positioned?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go ahead and take that. So Clear Skye is an identity governance and administration solution. Identity governance and administration as an industry or a market covers different areas that you probably see in ServiceNow today. We manage the life cycle of employees. So from the time you started an organization, when you change jobs or get promoted or change locations, when you leave an organization, and everything in between, making sure that you have the access you need, that you can enable yourself to perform your job, but also that you're not over-provisioned, you haven't been granted access, or you don't continue to contain access that may present risk to the broader organization.
Awesome. And you're coming up to your first year funding anniversary. How have things gone over that time?
No, it's a fantastic question. And, it's been amazing. We've really grown the team quite a bit. In the last year, we had Jarod Mundt and quite a few others join our team. We're really starting to see a mix from the original founders who definitely had a mix of security experience and ServiceNow experience. But we're really starting to see more identity individuals join the team. We're starting to see more developers join the team, and we're really starting to see things speed up. The rate of innovation is increasing. And the quality of the features and the things that we're producing has accelerated quite a bit in this last year.
Awesome. And what have been your biggest learns sort of over the last year from a company standpoint?
That's a big one. That's a big question. Quite a bit. So, like I mentioned, the influx of different sort of perspectives, having additional folks come in from the identity space and bring their experience. When we started Clear Skye, we approached the identity problem or the opportunity really in the same way we would any other ServiceNow application, looking to drive efficiency, looking to drive experience. And so now that we've had more and more identity experts join the team and more heavyweights in the identity industry, we're starting to realize or understand, problems that weren't even in our view. So things like, more of the deeper compliance components, more of the automation and some of the pain points that exist in the market today. Things that we take for granted coming from the ServiceNow side of the world.
Awesome. So when we first spoke a few weeks ago, I think we mentioned that the mentorship is a core part of the podcast and something we're trying to get across to our listeners. And you both had amazing careers, before Clear Skye and even moving into Clear Skye. Would love to hear sort of a quick overview of both your careers. And I suppose I'm always very interested in how you got into ServiceNow initially, because everybody I speak to has a different story. So Jarod, can you give us an overview of pre Clear Skye career?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had a great time in my whole career, especially the pre-ServiceNow time. So even going back to right out of high school, I joined the U.S. Air Force and spent 5 years doing network operations, web development, desktop support, every aspect of kind of the IT for the military, and that's kind of where I got my start with the security as well. Securing new systems, reviewing existing systems for proper configuration. Then that turned into my post-military career, where I did a lot of system administration, network administration. Again, stayed in the security focus. Ended up with a variety of security certifications, like the Security Plus, up to the CISSP, and was in charge of a network infrastructure team, and also a desktop support team, where at a large company we had about, I think, 17,000 desktops, laptops out there in production. And that's where it kind of pivoted into the ServiceNow scope, where we were implementing ServiceNow, like I said, back in the 2013, 2014 era, and converting a lot of legacy ITSM systems, but also some homebrew, the old school Oracle database with the Cold Fusion web front end, migrating processes from those systems over into ServiceNow. We had a lot of service request fulfillment processes that were built on top of SharePoint workflows. And that was one of my contributions to the team. I was a SharePoint designer and developer, and managed some crude SLAs over on the SharePoint workflows. And then immediately when I saw ServiceNow and Power, I just went all in, helped convert our systems in there, and went to Knowledge 14, helped the company create a new position to be the ServiceNow product owner. I took that, applied and got that position, and the rest is history on the ServiceNow side. And then, have been involved ever since.
Awesome. And you're doing quite well at it by the sounds of things with the MVP award. And TJ?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take it a little further back than where Jarod did. As long as I can remember, I've always been into computers, whether that is, the hardware side of things, taking things apart early on, a little bit worse about putting them back together, but we got there eventually. The software side of things, I remember, very few books in elementary school, but being able to go to the library and pick up QBasic or some of those early programming languages and build like choose your own adventure games with some of my friends and things like that. And that, of course, transitioned, post high school into, you're always, anytime you're good at computers, you're always your family's support desk, right? So it was a natural transition to take it from, supporting grandma and supporting my mom and fixing a printer here and there into sort of the corporate world. And early on, I did a few internships, got to see different industries and some of the things that they were doing in supporting their populations, their organizations. And so really, I got into ServiceNow when I was a help desk. I was working graveyard help desk at an international law firm. And you can imagine graveyard help desk is not the best position, maybe probably one of the lower sort of entry level positions. And so I was, really passionate about automation, passionate about development, and really wanted to, be able to leverage those skills. And so when the opportunity presented itself, our, help desk manager at the time had asked if anyone knew JavaScript or anyone knew ServiceNow development. I jumped at the opportunity. I went online. I looked at the doc site. I looked at, or was the wiki at the time. I looked at, the community and really was able to leverage the help that they provided to be able to figure some of these out. Right, the first few projects I was put on, stumble through and be able to resolve some of those issues and see the outcomes that come from automation. It's no longer you're just helping one person on a phone call, but that you can help the organization improving those processes and save hundreds or thousands of man hours in something that maybe only takes 15 or 20 minutes. And it was extremely addicting, right? One after another, being able to solve those problems and see the outcomes. So, that project turned into another project, and they started off small, making an adjustment here, changing a business rule here, doing basic things like that. But eventually it started to turn into, after seeing success, departments coming and saying, hey, could you build a ticketing system to do this? Or could you build an application to do this? And like you mentioned earlier, the 2012 Innovation of the Year was really what, supercharged it. We went in and worked on a bit of the early, they called it runbook automation at the time before it turned into orchestration. We had automated a migration of Windows machines. So the entire organization worldwide, 17 offices, was looking to migrate from Windows XP to a newer version. And also our Exchange servers were being upgraded. And so we were able to write PowerShell scripts and workflow to be able to automate this entire process. And I think when I sort of volunteered for that, I was in a meeting where they had a document with 18 pages of steps that they were going to do manually. And I was like, why aren't we going to do this in a workflow? And within a week, we were able to do that. And, that really gave us visibility that I don't think the ServiceNow platform had before that. And it just sort of started the career path that I'm on now.
Amazing. And it's very interesting. We see, titles, right? VP, founder. It's easy to forget sometimes there's a long story, to get to there as well. So, looking back, you mentioned a couple there, but are there any key tipping points that you would say that, when you look back on your career, that you think, yeah, that was where I made a jump, etc. Jarod?
The broad one would be just having some good managers along the way that I guess encouraged me or threw me into the deep end of the pool to automate things or try something that nobody else had been able to figure out and say, hey, this is really hard. Go do it. I'm not going to assign you any help desk tickets for, a week or so. Just go figure this thing out. And then with some little successes along the way there, that helped. One of the big ones is not even ServiceNow related, but just going to my first DEF CON hacker conference kind of just created or kind of fanned the flames of the love of meeting people, talking to people, building a community, just seeing how great it is when a whole bunch of people who are like-minded get together and work together on something. So that got me involved in local tech communities. And then when I found the ServiceNow community with the community forums and now with the SN Devs Slack channel, there's just always people online that are willing to help and share knowledge. And that's really fanned the flames of me being excited about the product and me learning about the product and sharing knowledge. And then that's really, since being involved in the ServiceNow community, finding work has been really easy, right? Because if people know who you are, you don't have to, go in through the front door on the HR website. You meet people, they can vouch for you, and it just works out well. And then also, being involved on these products leads to other things. Being included in the developer MVP crowd. Yeah, it's kind of an honor to be. I mean, if you look at the other names on that list, there's just it's an impressive group of people, and then being able to reach out to that group just also helps. I guess that would be the most recent tipping point for the career is having an option of mentors and advisors as needed.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think I hear the word, you hear it in the news sometimes, self-made billionaire, self-made, and by no means am I even close to that, but self-made, right? And I think that is a fallacy in a way, that we are sort of a product of the people that have helped us before. So I think it's critical to have, supporting management, someone who's going to give you a platform to stand on, someone who's going to give you opportunity. And then we owe it to those people to, be not successful, but give it our all, and really try and help them in the same way that they're helping us. And I think that if you approach things in that way, everyone wins, really. So I think from a tipping point perspective, sitting in that help desk position, picking up calls, and my manager at the time, who I'll call out, Joe Romano, had given me an opportunity to, do something more, and given me an opportunity to mentor me through that. We all have horror stories in IT. We all have one or two that, you deleted something you shouldn't, or you configured something you shouldn't. And it's even more common early on than we all like to admit. but having people who are forgiving and who, won't throw you under the bus, or who will support you and say, look, this happened and we fixed it, and move forward. Things like that are really what, give you the confidence to continue to grow and continue to do better. So when you ask about tipping points, I think, I can't attribute it to anything I did as much as what others have done for me, and giving me that opportunity to work towards where we are now.
Brilliant. And I love that the mentorship pieces and management piece across both of your stories is there. It's really important. So, if you had to give one piece of advice to the younger Jarod or the younger TJ, what would that be? If you had to have one phrase that you could deliver to your younger self?
I would say patience. When you're young, your view of success and what it means to be doing well in your life is often skewed by a lot of different perspectives, what you see on TV, what you hear, what you are told by teachers and things like that. And I think it's important to understand that every opportunity you take, every project you work on, you're learning something. And it's hard to see it when you're in the middle of it, and you're just doing the hard work, or you spent 12 hours working on something to find out it was a semicolon, or that you're trying to use G-form in a business rule, right? And some of those can be disheartening. But once you overcome that hill, no matter how hard it is, that's something now in your arsenal. It's something in your toolbox. And I look back now and I see so many of those struggles and so many of those times where I spent hours on the community trying to find an answer. And that the time spent sort of digging in and finding it, you learn so much more than if it would have just worked the first time. So I guess, if I could look back at myself, don't be too hard on yourself when it doesn't work the first time. Don't be too hard when you can't find the answer, because half the journey is exploring and researching. And there's things you find that you wouldn't have thought to ask, but you were given that opportunity through something that may have seemed like a negative at the time. So be easy on yourself and just know that each day that you spend in those communities, each new thing you read is just knowledge that you may not need today, but I've seen benefit myself over the career. So
awesome. And I can imagine with supportive leadership, that probably would be an easier thing to embark on. And Jarod?
I agree with that. I would add that for myself, that just do even more knowledge sharing. Like, I've always been kind of a learn something and share it kind of mindset, but I've always kind of held back a little bit, like on things that I thought maybe would help me out with job security, or would, for whatever reason. And I would say just if I could earlier in my career take that to the next level and just learn something and share 100% of it. I think that would have just increased the speed and help myself and others out earlier. And yeah, I'll shout out to other developer MVPs that have reputations for just learning something and then writing a blog post about it the next day. And yeah, like Jay Spenson and Ashley Snyder are just really good examples of just sharing everything immediately.
Now, looking at Clear Skye specifically, how did it all start? If you give us a quick overview of how it was born.
We started the company early on to solve a problem that we saw, but we didn't realize how big the problem was. So coming from a help desk, coming from a regulated company, we knew that auditors were coming in and looking at access. We knew that oftentimes this was a manual process. It shared all of the attributes that you would expect in a ServiceNow project. It was being done manually. Spreadsheets were involved. Email was involved. It was heavy, and that you still weren't doing everything that you needed to do within there. So when we started, we focused on audit. We focused on that review process that we knew was a pain point in our lives. We then grew into other processes as we, got more into the IGA space where, okay, well, people are being onboarded and they need access, right? People need to be able to request access. And many of the people listening to this, if you're from the ServiceNow space, each of us have solved this problem one way or another. We've all done an access catalog. We've all done an approval around access. If you have orchestration or provisioning, you wrote a PowerShell script to interact with Active Directory. It's much easier now. You now have Integration Hub. You now have Flow Designer. So it's gotten the bar is much lower to jump over. But in the beginning, you would have to do all those things. And so with Clear Skye, we had taken that bit of approach as small little modules. And over time, we started to see the patterns. And over the first call that we did for a sales perspective, went about as well as you'd think it would. A lot of questions about the gaps that we had and the problem that we were solving, and the next 50 probably went just as bad. And you keep at it, and each call you did, and each time someone asked a question that you couldn't answer, you realized that there was a bigger problem to solve. And so over a 4-year time frame, introducing early customers, solving more and more problems, and coming up with what Clear Skye is today, where we're doing full identity lifecycle, where we have an access catalog and approvals, and we're thinking of separation of duties and risk assessments, and we're doing reviews at a much higher level than we've done in the past. Just know that it's baby steps to get to this point, right? You don't just get here. It's that you start with an idea to make things easier, general idea. You see the problem from your perspective, and you talk to more and more people, whether that's community on ServiceNow or whether that's the individuals who are looking to solve a problem with their organization. And over that time, you get a clearer picture. That vision, that solution becomes clearer and clearer. And then at some point, you look back and say, "How did I get here?" And it's getting it wrong a few times. It's hearing feedback, it's listening, and trying to solve the problem. And as long as that's the approach you take, you're only going to have one outcome. As long as what drives you is to help people and is to solve those problems. So, sort of long-winded answer, but it started off very small. It started off in just audit and reviewing access, and it's grown into something much bigger.
Awesome. And Jarod, we hear it more generally in the platform. We're hearing lots about risk, compliance, security side of ServiceNow in positive lights. Why are we hearing more about that now? If you don't mind, maybe some of the macro sort of trends you're seeing that's driving companies to really focus in on those sides of the platform now.
Yeah, I like this side of it because it takes my old world of doing information assurance and audits for classified command and control military systems and checking boxes on paperwork and that legacy, or the old way of doing things with the new way of doing it, with the platform of platforms, and with ServiceNow getting all your data in one place to manage it and have dashboards, and sharing information within the organization faster so things can get remediated faster. And so yeah, just the maturing of having executives across all different sectors kind of speaking the same language, whereas before that wasn't the case. And then also the tooling is better now. Like they can build what they need for their industry or their specific compliance needs. The other thing I think is just the continuation of breaches and bad press out there for the companies that are not investing in it or doing it wrong. And so plus obviously, I don't have a specific metric, but picture 10 years ago, a company's data was probably spread out over 40 different databases and business systems, and today it's probably 4, or it's trending that direction. So you put all those things together, and yeah, it's more important to do it well today than it is 10 years ago.
So when we're looking at I suppose key messages to a CIO or CISO, what are the kind of key messages that you're making sure you get across when, I'm not necessarily thinking about the value of your product. I'm just thinking more generally of what they should have front of mind. What sort of 2 or 3 things would you recommend, or even one thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a diverse amount of workloads that are now happening on the platform. I think ServiceNow started out in the ITSM space and ticketing space. And it's actually interesting to see how so many security processes really end up in the ITSM space. It's either a ticket, it's a workflow that needs to happen, it's executing a procedure that needs to happen with consistency. And so as you've started to see this sort of shift and people are starting to see, how much is in the platform that maybe isn't so much incident, but is being used there, you're seeing that the platform and how ServiceNow has solved ITSM applies to so many other use cases. And having this single source of truth, or this single pane of glass to see across all of these different systems and all of these different processes and be able to summarize that, in the past would often take many different integrations, many complex integrations. We often say swivel chair, where you're going from one system to the next system and you skip the third system because you forgot about it, because there's 15 or 20 different systems that you're then needing to look at. And so I think that, the more ServiceNow is invested in the security side of things and the experience side of things, and going from that ITSM into the broader enterprise, that there are synergies between the different applications that could be leveraged. HR, for example, is one of the fastest growing business units within ServiceNow for onboarding and offboarding. And beyond just the business process of HR, IT is one of the critical components of getting an individual into the organization and related to that experience. And we see those better together stories across the enterprise. So instead of each organization or each business unit being its own silo within the organization, there's so many touch points to make that a seamless experience. And so as customers, as CISOs, as CIOs look to provide that better experience for their organizations, I think ServiceNow becomes very attractive. It becomes attractive not only from its low-code, no-code platform, but really driving everything off of experience and workflow and connecting different processes together to ensure that they're seamless. And I think the stakes are higher. The security threats have become, even worse over the years. We're seeing entire hospitals shut down from, encryption, spyware, or you're seeing more and more attack vectors happen. And so it's becoming harder for the resources today to be able to keep up with the threats that are popping up almost every single day. So wherever we could shave down complexity, wherever we can bring things into a single system and be able to monitor across all of those, different attack vectors, the better off we are to respond to them. And if you have to go to 15 different systems to try and combine all of that data and determine what actually happened, that becomes there's a lot to be lost there. There's a lot of room for error in that. Whereas by having everything on a single platform, by having a single experience, by having your business workflows tied together, you at least have a chance in that case, right? Whereas for those of you who are still reviewing using spreadsheets, I could only imagine, the difficulty that should be, especially as I've heard metrics that say about organizations are looking at on average 160 applications within their organization, and most companies are reviewing access on a quarterly basis. And that's just one task out of hundreds of tasks that they need to do. And so things aren't slowing down. So we need to find more efficient ways to work. We need to find more efficient ways to interact. And I think ServiceNow has done a fantastic job. And I think, a lot of CISOs, a lot of C-site executives could relate to that.
Yeah, and I would add to that, it kind of ties back to one of the tipping points that I didn't mention earlier. In 2016, I was at an implementation partner and was one of the few technical consultants doing deployments that had some of these higher security certifications like the CISSP. And so in Geneva, that was security incident response 1.0, vulnerability response 1.0, and edge encryption 1.0 were all part of that Geneva release. And so being in the right place at the right time with the right certs, I got involved to deploy some of the earlier security incident response product. And I think it was the first edge encryption deployment that was not done by ServiceNow Professional Services itself. And on every one of those projects, there was a concern to not customize it, not lock it down, and not do anything that would prevent future integrations, because those executives wanted to use the vulnerability response dashboard or the security incident response dashboard or the, at the time, the GRC risk registry types of dashboards to be their, kind of the state of the enterprise dashboard. And so, yeah, pivoting back to Clear Skye, and TJ used the word better together. That's part of the focus on our product, is to do what needs to be done and deliver it in whatever the format that's needed.
No, thanks for that, and that's a really nice segue actually, because my next question is, why is Clear Skye a great place to work? So better together, I'm sure, is probably one of those reasons. But Jarod, what's the reason that you feel that Clear Skye is a great place for developers and other ServiceNow professionals to work at?
As a manager, I look at things like adding positives and removing negatives. And TJ hit on one of the big negatives that I've heard of and seen in the past is working at a place where there's no budget for training, there's no budget for getting off the beaten path and letting someone that's interested in doing some research on a topic to be in a position to let somebody go do a R&D project for 2 weeks and having a training budget and a conference budget and an expectation that you're not going to clock in and clock out, but that we're going to invest in you and expect you to get better at your job, right? We're going to hire you on day one with a certain set of skills, but that's not where things end. We want to grow people and promote from within and all that sort of thing. So being at a rapidly growing company, I mean, even myself, I started there 8 months ago as the security architect, and now I'm sitting in a managerial position helping to guide the product. And I think anybody joining that's joined after me or has joined before me would say the same thing, that small company, you're not pigeonholed, you're not hired to do a particular job and that's all you do. It's a small company. We have a lot of things going on, and so there's a lot of variety. I don't know, those are the first couple things that come to mind.
Yeah, awesome. They're great things.
I really like, and I'll jump in here a little bit, the focus component of it. I know you talked a little bit about it earlier, Jarod, is depending on what position you are within ServiceNow. So, I think we can all sort of relate to this, where you may have transitioned from a previous position, a different role, into the ServiceNow experience as a customer. And often that's like a request and a resolution sort of relationship, where you're being asked by the business to execute on certain goals that they've defined to drive their business forward. And there's great experience and learning opportunity there. And I think the next sort of natural transition for a lot of folks is to then look to move into a consulting position, where you start to see additional industry, different companies and how they operate. And you're still sort of working off of you're working from a perspective that you have a set of hours or you have a project, and that project starts and that project ends. And I think something unique to Clear Skye and really a product company in the ServiceNow space is that we have one product and we get to focus on improvement and sort of driving a roadmap towards that product. And so, one of the things I've noticed in the past and working in-house and working for consulting is that you may want to do a bunch of things. You may think that, oh, okay, I need to do this, this, and this, but oftentimes you'll have to, not do those things because you have another task right after that one, and you have another task right after that one, and the priorities may be shifted. Whereas here, for the last year, we get to continue to invest in the user experience. We get to continue to invest in reducing the time to value or reducing the time that it takes to complete certain activities. And we've been able to break down an application into multiple systems and subsystems that we then get to take responsibility and focus on making it the best it possibly is, without the concept of a time frame where by this time you're no longer going to be able to work on that app that you worked on and it's going out in the wild and it's going to just be used. And maybe if there's a problem, it's your problem, right? But whereas this, you get to continue to see the full potential of an application. So, I think that's unique to a product company. And I think that if that's something that interests developers, that's the type of experience you'll have here.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I call it the perpetual hackathon.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
We're not just deploying something, a V1 of something, and putting all the nice to have features in the parking lot for some future product, some future release that somebody else will work on, and then moving on. We get to actually do those fun ideas and have some long-term ownership.
Really nicely put. I like that. So we've obviously spoken a lot about GRC and security and those sides. We do hear a lot about sort of AI and the product, the platform, becoming more complex. As we come to a close, what are your both of your views on the future state If you can get your crystal balls out, look towards the future of ServiceNow, what does that look like?
It's going to continue to grow wide. There's going to be a ton of things happening on the same platform. And I think I'll echo something from a previous episode that Robert Federer was saying about for your own career, specialize, pick something and go deep. And it doesn't have, I mean, machine learning AI is definitely the future, headliner features, but it doesn't have to be that. Even if you want to just be, go deep and learn everything about resource scheduling and time cards within the platform, like just go deep. Don't, as opposed to try and learning, 2 sentences about everything that ServiceNow is capable of, because it's huge today and it's just going to keep on getting bigger.
So don't always be sort of trying to grab the new shiny part.
Right.
Okay, no, nice. TJ, anything you'd add there about the future state?
I'm really excited about the use of the platform in general. Oftentimes when I first started 10 years ago, it was all about the IT department being in the platform. And then you started seeing other administrative departments join. And now we're at a state where with CSM and some of these other modules that we're starting to see populations beyond the organization, the individuals and the customers and partners and with things like vendor risk management, we're seeing more types of identities and resources within it. And I think that opens it up for a lot of potential to move beyond just a single department or a single company and really start to sort of have an impact on the experience in the world in some of those engagements and some of the workflows that you're building. So like I mentioned earlier, the energy that comes from implementing a fix that took 15 minutes that saves 2,000 man hours. I think we're starting to see those multiply even further. And so I'm excited to see where they go and sort of what the potential in those areas are.
Awesome. Look, guys, it's been an amazing chat. Thank you very much. Is there, as we come to a close, is there anything you'd like to add at all? Or
we're constantly growing. I mean, over the last year, we've grown 300%, and we don't see that slowing down at all. We're continuing to grow the engineering teams, DevOps, product, sales, etc. And Jarod, as a VP of engineering, has a few headcount that he's looking to fill today. We're excited to find individuals who are looking to help, looking to make things easier for the people that use our software. And so if you're interested, if anything that we've talked about today seems exciting to you, even if you're not ready to move or you like the job you have, we talk to people like that all the time. So, feel free to reach out to Jarod, myself. We're on LinkedIn, we're on community, we're out there, and we'd love to just have a conversation. Doesn't mean that, you have to join us, but even if you're just interested in some of the topics that we've talked about, or even if you're just thinking about starting your ServiceNow career now, we were there not too long ago. And I had someone, and Jarod had someone, and I think everyone who's listening to this podcast had someone who was willing to spend that 15 minutes, that 30 minutes to have that conversation. And I think I could speak for both of us that we'd love to be that person for you also. Now, if our inbox gets filled up, it may take a while to respond, but please.
Say. No, it's really cool of you both to be able to pay experience forward. So, and no, thank you very much. I'm sure you'll be having a few virtual coffees with people after this as well. So, no, thank you very much for your time, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you too, Ben.
Thank you.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.